All right, we're running a little late tonight, but here we are. We're glad you're joining us if you're at home. All right, I have a first question for you guys on there. In order to be obedient to the Great Commission and Jesus' command to be his witnesses, we have to make two decisions. What are they?
Call upon the name of the Lord.
Did you look up the verses already?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Acts 2:21 said that everyone who calls upon the name of the Lord will be what? Saved. So if you want to be a sheepdog, first of all, you got to be a dog. And so you've got to have made a decision to want to be that. And then what is 1 Peter 3:15? Anybody know it off the top of your head?
Lord, always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you. Give a reason for the hope that you have. But do this with gentleness and respect.
Three key words that I want you to, if you've got that verse, is always be what? Prepared. Right. If you're going to prepare, that means you've got to know in advance. Right? You've got to put in some work. You got to know some scriptures, the stuff that we've been handing out. At least have. I started doing this with my small group. They wanted to do this. Some of them saw some of the stuff we're doing on Facebook. They want to do this. But our job is, again, as he said, like a baseball player, just to advance the runner. Dave Keenan was a great home run hitter, and he hit some bombs. They looked really cool, but he struck out. He led the league in strikeouts almost every year too. So we want to move the runner along. So we have to be able to have, even if you just know a couple things about the reliability of the Old Testament, a couple things about the New Testament, or a couple things about eyewitness, and you can create some interest and some hope that they'll want to continue the game or the conversation, then we're ahead. All right. So some of those things that we handed out earlier, if you got some, even a few of those stashed away in your pocket. And then, again, with gentleness and respect. We talked about that before. Arguments don't do any good. Okay? 2 Timothy chapter 2. Don't get caught up in foolish arguments. They just cause quarrels, and then we lose the game. All right? So always be prepared. Okay? And that's what this whole class has been about, is being prepared to go out and share your testimony. All right? Anybody have any questions on those two verses? All right, he said, make your opening statement with what?
Great enthusiasm.
Great enthusiasm. I am here to tell you today about Jesus, and I hope that you will be interested in what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's you.
Yeah, so, you got to. Important, right? Why do you think that having enthusiasm is important?
I've sat through enough college classes, I tell you that the professor's not enthusiastic, neither are you.
You have to be more enthusiastic.
What's that?
You have to be more enthusiastic so people be more excited or something.
Yeah. If you're enthusiastic about something, then other people are going to be enthusiastic about it. If you're excited, they're going to be excited. It's hard to be.
If you're boring, then
Yeah, if you're boring, they're gone. I've got another question coming up on that here in just a few seconds. In fact, let's just look at the statement I've got there. People tend to get attached to their initial impressions of others and find it very difficult to change their opinion, no matter what evidence you produce. Right? So if doing a bunch of reading on this, and I know in church we always say you've got less than a minute to make a first impression. By the time they get to your parking lot and get in, they've already made their mind up about whether they're coming back or not. Before they've heard a song, before they've seen preach, first impressions. If you're driving down the street and you see a clean restaurant over here and a dive over here, which one are you going to? Clean one. Even though the dive, if you guys are like me, I love dives. I like checking them out because that's sometimes where you find the best food.
That's true.
But if you don't, first impressions are everything. I was doing some reading on this today. Psychology Today said if you're going to like a job interview, you got 7 seconds. And the way that you walk in the room, your facial expression, the way you shake hands. Yeah. How about, look at TikToks. Anybody, you guys are all watching TikToks, right?
No,
How long are
that's
they?
dangerous.
Yeah, what are they, 15, 20-second video clips? That's the attention span of people today. And so if you take a long time to get your presentation out, and you're not very excited that at the funeral, the tech guy came up to me and gave me a microphone. I said, well, what headset? And I said, well, what are Brian and Mark using? They're just gonna use the podium. I said, well, how about Pastor Matt? And he said, well, he's just gonna use the podium mic too. Well, why are you offering me a microphone? Because he says, you're not gonna stand still. You're not gonna stand behind. But what I found is, even when I was in a college classroom, if I stayed in the same place all the time, people would get, but if I'm moving, they've got to at least turn their head and follow me, or I can, walk around and I can make a connection, look at somebody in the eyes, and that's part of making your presentation too. Look somebody in the eyes, make eye contact with them. Because if you look down while you're trying to give your reason, it's kind of like you're ashamed or you're trying to hide something. So first impressions are huge. So be enthusiastic and be confident in what you're doing, right? Number 2, keep your audience engaged. Yeah. Now, keep them engaged is different. I put a quote here for you from Psychology Today. It can be off-putting when someone comes on too strong. So we can't be, he mentioned a little bit, don't be arrogant, don't be Mr. Know-It-All or Mrs. Know-It-All. Jesus gave some great speeches in the Bible, but he was always pretty humble. And so make sure that you keep it humble, but keep it engaging. When we got a story we're going to look at here in a minute. So what did Jesus use whenever he did teachings? Parables, stories that he used. When he was talking to the fishermen, what kind of stories did he tell? Fishing stories. When he was talking to farmers or sheep herders, what did he use? Agriculture. Almost all of his parables and stories have to deal with either the sea and fishing or agriculture, because those are the people that he spent a lot of time with. Yeah. So speak in language that they understand, right? Use some stories, try to make it so it's applicable to them. I can go, like, if I was teaching class in college, if I was teaching a basic wellness class, that all students had to take a 2-hour wellness class, or Lifetime Fitness. I'd have to talk to them different than I would with my kinesiology students when I started talking about internal rotation, external rotation, sublax shoulders, and that kind of stuff. They'd be going like, kind of like, what are you talking about? So stand up and tell me, like, when you're playing golf, every muscle that you use and all the joints and what movements are they? What plane of movement is it? Frontal plane, lateral plane, hip. So remember we talked about that last week, about the 4 different groups of yours. So be engaging to them as you go. Okay, again, always be prepared. Be prepared and, what did he say?
Eager.
Mm-hmm. Practice.
Yeah.
Practice. How many of you, I asked you a couple weeks ago, how many of you have written down your testimony? Put your hand down, don't embarrass everybody else. Yeah, write your testimony out. Write it out. If I type up like a sermon notes and stuff, 1 page is usually about 5 minutes. But write it out so that you have it, and then read it to yourself and see if it makes sense, or how you can put it together in a different way. And I would tell you maybe have a couple different testimonies written out. If you've been in any kind of sales or anything like that, elevator speech. You got somebody on an elevator, how many minutes do you usually have? 1, 2, yeah. So what's your quick go-to as you meet somebody? Again, not everybody's going to need the same. Your story may not connect with everybody. So if you have 2, God's working your way in life more than one way.
People actually talk on the elevator?
Well, again, that depends on who you are. Remember, I'm the Air Force brat that went to 13 schools in 12 years, and so if I didn't get conversations started, who knows who was. That kills my wife, because she is the total opposite. Whenever I used to get up and get her to speak, she'd be like, the bear was in her mouth and the sweaters were so big that she would just keep, you know, like, she's gotten good over 25 years of doing presentation now. She's gotten better, but she's not a speaker. She won't just go up to somebody and start talking. But as a college football coach, I'd have to go into a high school and talk to a coach that I didn't know and a player I didn't know and try to convince them to come be on my team. And so, you get used to kind of doing those things. Or maybe that's why I do the things I do, because that's mine.
Was it harder to talk to the coach or the parents?
Parents are always the most difficult. You know, if you've got 17, 18-year-old kid in high school, they want to know where their kid's going to school, how are you going to treat them, and things like that. They're concerned. So, so you get used to talking to a lot of different people, but be prepared. So again, write it out and read it, practice it. Pastor Mack, the guy that took my place at First Baptist Church, was a homeschool kid. Did a lot of his college work online. He's not quite as sociable as I am. So what he does is on Friday mornings, he goes into the sanctuary and he goes through his sermon probably 2 or 3 times. Just practice, pretend like he's standing in front of people, so that he has a good idea of what he's doing and where he's going. So it depends on who you are. And you got to know who you are, but practice it. Again, pick somebody that you know, and ask them if you can share your testimony with them, and then ask for their opinion. Was that, is that something that you like? What could I do different? Those kind of things, so that you're always prepared. Number 4 was important. Make good on your promises. Okay? Don't promise something you can't deliver. He said. In his full book called Cold Case Christianity, he talks about you're never going to have all the answers. Okay? I'm never going to have all the answers. There are things that atheists can't prove about God. There's things that we can't prove about God. And some of them are the same, but don't ever promise that you can absolutely positively prove something, because we can't. What we're trying to do is put together enough pieces of evidence that they at least have some interest in going farther. Right? We want to get them to first base. And maybe somebody else comes up and bats clean up and gets them home, but we just want to get them interested in talking about the things of the Lord. Okay? Make your presentation, number 5 on the back side, accessible. Now, what did that mean? Well, you get there. I got something. So go ahead. What did he mean by accessible?
Make it so people can understand what you're talking about and don't talk too fast.
Okay. I've already done that conversation once or twice here. Slow down. You talk too fast on Sundays. But I get excited. What else, as Christians, when we use that word accessible, what are some other things that we have to be careful about?
Using phrases that they won't understand.
Oh, there we go. Good job.
Are you saved?
We have our own language called Christianese. And people outside of church have no idea what we're talking about. Where did it go here? There's a really good movie called The Resurrection of Gavin, can't remember his last name now. But anyway, he is a non-Christian who's been sentenced to do community service at a church. And he sees...
Bless his heart.
Hazelnuts crispy fish sandwich is back.
Ooh, fish.
Anyway, he sees the pastor's daughter is leading, they're getting ready to do a Christmas, Easter pageant. And she's really cute and attractive. If you're familiar with the Christian comedian Angela, the Mexican-looking girl that talks about her nails and stuff, Johnson. Anyway, so he pretends to be a Christian, and he's talking to these guys, and they're talking about sanctification and washed in the blood and St. Augustine and stuff. And he's like, they have no idea what they're talking about.
Dine in, drive through, order online, or use your Freddy's app.
Let me go back here. So these guys are pretty good here.
Do they broadcast that?
I think it's because
It's
it's free on YouTube. It's not a song
Bless
that's
his heart.
CCL
He's
Live.
backsliding? I think I saw him drink.
Yeah, but in moderation.
I just wasn't seeing much fruit.
He's going down a slippery slope.
How's your heart, man?
How's your heart?
I'm just such a words guy.
It was a total got me.
Is that secular music?
We're opening with a secular song tonight.
Wait, is this a secular song? Isn't she secular?
Which station's The Fish?
104.3 The Fish. Safe for the whole family. You know he's a believer. I think he's saved.
I just pray you would give him traveling mercies. Pray for all Tyler's unspokens.
Echo that.
Just really like to echo Tyler's prayer, Father. I echo that echo of my echo of his echo.
I really feel like I'm being released from this, you know?
I'm trying to be relevant. I'm just trying to be in the world, not of it. Hey, do you want to join our small group? You want to join my D group? You want to join my cell group, community group, access group, accountability group, Acts 27 group?
Dude, he brought it.
He brought the word. That service last night rocked me.
They're pretty purpose-driven.
Yeah, it's Seeker. Don't they do Seeker service there?
I feel like he's gotten really watered down.
I don't feel like he really teaches the word.
There's not enough meat, you know?
Are they nom? We have a great Wednesday night supper.
Let's invite some dudes over and fellowship tonight. We're gonna have a sweet time of fellowshipping tonight.
Dude, we had the sickest fellowship last night. We're going to Extreme.
Velocity.
Ignite.
Yeah, I'm going to Ignite.
The Edge.
The Dive.
The Bridge. The Ramp.
Fire.
Courageous. Passion. Echo. Reverb.
Noise.
Velocity. Drive.
Elevate.
Radiate.
722.
635.
419.
Orange.
Blue.
Yellow. Green. Clear. Neon.
Catalyst conference this year.
I don't do that because I feel like it ruins my witness.
Been struggling with that.
So I'm really wrestling with that. I'm wrestling with a doubt.
Need someone to hold me accountable.
I'm really trying to be intentional with her. I'm pursuing her for sure. I'm trying to guard her heart.
Guard her heart, though, bro.
Will you hold me accountable to that?
Yeah, well, bounce your ass. Bounce your ass.
Dang it.
Crap.
Shoot. Sheesh.
Frick.
Don't.
Another, I don't know if you guys are familiar with John Christ. You know who John Christ is, the comedian. He talks about, like, depending on where you're at, he is at doing a conference and he goes, "Who's my Southern Baptist?" And Gary says, "You're Southern Baptist." He says, "Is it all right if I lay hands on you?" He says, "What if he's in Dallas." He goes, "What if I'm in downtown Dallas tonight and somebody comes up to me and says, I'm going to lay my hands on you." But, what's the difference? Are you washed in the blood? Well, I don't want to be washed in blood. That's like a zombie movie or something. So we have to be...
Why did you say fish?
Because you ever seen on the back of a car, somebody has a fish symbol,
Oh.
or like on the Chosen, they use the fish symbol quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's one of those things that,
When he said a number.
Yeah. well, it might be like some church, like Acts 6:37 or Acts 2:42. Those are all popular verses that mean something. John 3. Hey, yeah, how about we're going to John 3:16? Okay, so some church services start at like 11:10, or really weird time because of the Bible verse. And so we have to be careful with language that we use if we're going to be accessible to the people, because they like fellowship. What does fellowship mean to you? We had fellowship on Sunday. What did we do?
Sing.
We ate.
We ate.
Dessert.
We had a food orgy. We had fellowship.
We were Baptist.
Or
Or go out to eat after church.
what's that?
Or go out to eat after church.
Yeah, I know. Or if somebody tells me as a pastor, I don't feel led, that tells me that
I don't want to do it.
exactly. So there's church language that we have to be careful with. You're like, I can do all things through Christ. You ever tell anybody that?
Walk on water. There's a challenge.
Here's the thing, like we tend to pick those verses and use them out of context. Because like when Paul says I can do all things, he's not saying he can come in here and bench press 500 pounds. He's saying I can do all things. I can be without food. I can be without water. I can be in the ocean naked and swimming for 3 days. I can do all those things because of Christ. He doesn't say I can do anything I want. So that kind of language we have to be careful with. And again, that's a part of that. Don't make promises that you can't. So I'm blessed. How many times do we say I'm blessed? How many times before you're going in to have heart surgery, you go, I'm blessed?
Me.
We're really blessed when things are going well, but we don't always say I'm blessed when things are not going well. Just how we use language and different words like that, we have to be a little bit careful as we go. Where we go. Always be cautious of that. Now, if somebody will turn to Matthew chapter 7, verses 24 through 29. and read that out loud. At home, if you guys are listening, we're going to Matthew chapter 7, verses 24 through 29 to hear Jesus give us an argument for him.
Everyone then who hears these words of mine and acts on them will be like a wise man who built his house on a rock. The rain fell, the floods came, and the winds blew and beat on that house, but it did not fall, because it had been founded on a rock. And everyone who hears these words of mine and does not act on them will be like a foolish man who built his house on sand. The rain fell, the floods came, and the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell, and great was its fall. Now when Jesus had finished saying these things, the crowds were astounded at his teaching, for he taught them as one having authority, not as their scribes.
Okay, so I want to go to that line really quick first, because he taught as one who had authority and not as their teachers of the law. So what you know about Pharisees and teachers of the law, how might they have talked to the people rather than how Jesus did? Down to them. A lot of superiority, a lot of big words, probably. Most of these people are, again, fishermen, farmers, peasants. They're not the upper crust, they're the sinners, the tax collectors, and so he speaks to them at a level that's for them, but he does it with such confidence. You can think of that as authority here, that he has the confidence in what he's saying. So he's asking them to do some things there. What's he asking them? What decision is he asking them to make?
Okay.
Obey? Okay?
Act on his words.
On his words? Yeah. What's he asking them to do, though? What are his words asking them to do? Trust in me.
Yeah.
Trust in me. Okay? He's the guy who built this house on the rock. When the rain came, all right, he withstood. So trust in me, because he stood on the rock. Trust me. If you don't trust in me, things are going to go bad for you. So trust in me, and do the things that I ask you to do. And if you'll follow my commandments, love one another, take care of the poor, take care of the widows, do all those kind of things, life will be good. And if you don't, then when the tough times come, you never last. That I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. If you take that the wrong way, when the storms come, what's going to happen? Yeah, you're going to get washed away. Okay. So he's asking them, put your trust in me. Trust me. Listen to the things that I do. Trust that what I'm teaching you is solid and it is good. And as you hear this, how would you rate his presentation in this? Is it good? Is it a good speech? What are some things that you think are good about it?
It's memorable.
Memorable?
We all know the song.
Okay.
Easy to understand.
Easy to understand.
Visual.
Visual, yeah. He paints pictures. He gives visual clues. You can, as he's saying, you can see the house being buffered by the storms, the waves. And then you can picture, like, if you've been to the beach at all and you build a sand castle and the water comes, the waves come in and the tide comes in and they go right out. No matter how big a cool castle you built, when the tide comes in, out. There was last week there was a girl, I can't remember what beach it was on. They dug a big hole, and the girl was in the hole, and the water came in, and the whole thing collapsed around her. She died. Yeah, couldn't dig her out fast enough. But he gives you a picture. He paints a picture. Jesus was very good at giving them images. A sower sowing seeds. The 4 different kinds of soil. Birds in a mustard tree. Things like that they could picture. All the different fish, like the second time they catch fish, it's like there's 100. He said there's 157 fish they caught. What's significant about that?
Full net.
Full net, yeah. But how many different fish were probably in that 157? Where he's talking about being fishers of men and all the different people he's going to call to himself. So he's great at using word pictures and things like that. When he was talking with the woman who was caught in adultery, and the guys brought her and said she needs to be stoned, what did he do?
Started crying.
He wrote something in the sand that was visual. He didn't have to say anything. So he's very good at doing, painting those words. And so if you were there listening to this, how would it have impacted you? How do you hope it would have impacted you? Yeah, we hope that we would have done something. It says that the crowds were amazed at his teachings. Okay, and because he's very visual and he spoke to the people in the words and language that they could understand, I think the Chosen does a really good job with Jonathan Rooney. When he stands up to talk, he's confident. He's really good. Interesting. If you're not a Chosen fan, and you want to get somebody engaged, I just read an article yesterday that about half of the people that are watching The Chosen are not believers. They're not believers. And about half of them are men and women, which is interesting because in church, it's not that way. There's usually more women than there are men. And the number of young people that are watching it, Gen Z and everything, is amazing, they said. Because people are looking for something authentic. And in the way that they portray Jesus in there, he's the real deal. And so it's really interesting. They're trying to figure it all out. That again, 50% of the people that are watching it are not believers, but they're searching for somebody. Somebody's invited them to watch it with them or do those kind of things.
Well, and they're also, as of, earlier this year, whatever, the app Hallow, the Catholics promote, and it's Jesus and Mark Wahlberg and different people.
Yeah.
And so if you are on social media at all and you see that, okay, so here's this guy who acts in this, and he's the real deal.
Mm-hmm.
He's not just an actor.
Yeah.
He really believes what he's acting out, and so you get a little more validity there. It would catch my attention when someone acts a part and then has something, and that's the way they live their life. So it's a good example.
Yeah.
And they utilize that.
I saw a thing on social media for that the other day, and the guy, the actor that was talking, I can't remember who it was now, what I'm talking about, I was like, what? That guy's pushing Hallow, the prayer app, for the Catholic Church? And I went, yeah. So pretty neat. And like on The Chosen, not everybody on The Chosen is a believer.
That's true.
All the actors. So what we need is, when it's all said and done, is how many people that were working there that weren't Christians maybe became Christians. Yeah. Like I said, I think I maybe told you, if you have the Angel Studios app, go back to the end of season 1 and watch the Gen Z episode. They brought in like 10 kids from around the country, just random kids. They had told them they were going to binge watch a TV show. They flew them into Utah, put them in a studio, and then they made them binge watch The Chosen, the first season of Chosen, and hear what the kids are talking about and how some of them were hurt by church, a couple of them are gay, and how they're thinking and what their thought process is, and how they kind of turn from first being about Jesus, and then they're like, oh, and they have these real conversations, and it's pretty neat. I sent them an email the other day and said, hey, why don't you follow, it's 3 years now, why don't you follow up with those kids and let's see where they are now. And that would be interesting to see where they're at. So I've kind of tried to Google a couple of the people to see where they're at. And one of the kids that was gay, he's still gay, but there's a young black man that they do, and he's doing all kinds of Christian stuff. Another one's doing rap, so kind of interesting. But again, this is an authentic. Jesus is real. He's very humble. He's not arrogant. So that's the way we've got to come across too. Not as better than you or not holier than thou. But again, we're all jacked up in some way. We all got our own faults and flaws, and we have to make sure that we're willing to acknowledge those as we go. And part of that is your attitude and your presence and your demeanor, as I wrote down here. J. Warner Wallace said that jurors have made decisions based on how they felt about someone rather than what they thought about the evidence. How would it make you feel if someone made a decision against Christ based on how they felt about you? You know, if you knew that somebody denied Christ because of the way that you act or spoke to them or behaved around them. I had an interesting phone call today from a church. A guy called me and he wanted to know about how many kids we had in youth group at First Baptist Church. And then he asked me a question. He says, what would you think if as a pastor, their search team was going to try to get people to go to first service, go to Sunday school, and then half of them come back and go to second service. So that when they brought in their candidate pastor, it looked like they had 2 services. And he said, how would you feel about that, or what should I do? And I'm like, first of all, if I came in candidated, I hope I'm smart enough to know that if I did first service and then probably had a Sunday school meeting with everybody and went to second service and saw all those people for the third time, I'd probably get up and leave because I know that you're trying to be deceptive. But he's just that idea about being real and being honest. How would you like to, be the pastor that accepts that call and then finds out that they have deceived you? How would that make you feel? That same church told one of their associate pastors when they went through a staff change a few years ago that they were going to bring in he wasn't going to be considered for the senior pastor role because they're going to bring in somebody with experience, and then they didn't bring in somebody. They brought in a guy who had never been a pastor before.
Oh, goodness.
So, and that kid's, because I tried to hire that kid at Augusta, but his wife said no, because church people are deceptive. So we'll never do church ministry again. So, yeah, so be in an honest, we don't want anybody to be turned away from Jesus because we think we know it all. Be honest. If you don't know the answer to something, we talked about that before. I don't know. How about if we look for it together, or I'll go find somebody, be like Philip. Hey, Andrew, I got these guys that want to meet Jesus. Can you take them to meet Jesus? Find somebody that can take them to second base or third base or whatever. Because we don't have to do it all by ourselves. So be humble, be gentle and respectful. Paul said that to Timothy. He said it as we go. So do that. I'd hate to be the one that somebody would tell somebody else that, I don't want to be a Christian because that person says they're a Christian. So be hard. And then the last thing on there, because we already talked about the Christianese stuff, is be sure to ask open-ended questions as you're sharing with people. Ask them, hey, do you understand this? And then if they say yes, I say, what about it? Ask them another question. Well, what about it struck you the most? What is it that you don't believe about it? Or always asking questions to try to drag out more information so you can know where to go with the conversation. If you just open your mouth and start spewing, what's likely to happen?
Shut down. Shut down.
Shut down. So share a little bit and then ask them questions about it to make sure that they understand. Again, I love the idea of drive-through talking. Okay? Anybody been to a fast food restaurant lately? I'd like a cheeseburger, french fries, and a chocolate shake. You want a fish sandwich, fries, and a Coke? No. I said I'd like a cheeseburger, french fries, and a chocolate shake. Okay, so that's a cheeseburger, onion rings, and a chocolate shake. No. And we just keep going. But do you understand? Is there something about that that you don't understand? So that you're having conversations, not just one person hammering another person. So be sure that we're open-ended questions. Who as you think about your testimonies, who in your life was probably one of the most instrumental people in coming to faith? Coming to knowledge, faith-saving knowledge of Jesus. Who was one of the most instrumental people in your life?
A pastor.
A pastor? Okay, Randy's 1 in 10. Remember, only about 1 in 10 people come to the,
A best friend.
best friend,
Sunday school teacher.
Sunday school teacher,
Mom and stepdad.
mom and stepdad. Anybody else? Wife? Okay.
Neighbor. Yeah,
For me, it was really the bad guys. I grew up as a kid, I loved football, and in elementary school I was reading, we went to church all the time, I grew up in church, but, the reading about Joe Namath and Bobby Lane and all these professional football players and all their partying and womanizing and chasing and stuff like that, I told my parents, by the time I was in third grade, I said, I'm gonna be a pastor because these guys are bad. They need a pastor. So because I just knew that there was something about Jesus that was different, and so I wanted to share it. So I'm not one of those people that go, this guy did it or that guy did it. I think most of it came because I heard about Jesus, but then I knew that these guys didn't know Jesus. And so I had to make a decision, whoever calls upon the name of the Lord shall be saved, in order to be able to do that, so that I can go be that. But that was kind of my goal in life. So again,
As a minister, Reverend Woods, I couldn't, I mean, he's scary. and he's kind of a gruff looking guy, anyway, and he called you out when you're talking in the back.
And on the front of the bulletins, it said on there every week, the Lord is in his holy temple, let all the earth keep silent before. So you just, I mean, Ron and I sat together for years doing that.
Did you sit there and keep quiet? Did you keep silent?
No.
But they got in trouble too.
We got in trouble a couple of times too.
Yeah.
It's Gary McCarty's fault, though.
Yeah, there you go.
Throw him under the bus. Saturday night last week, I've got a young couple that we've been trying to really mentor. They've joined our small group, but they have a teenage daughter that doesn't believe that there's anything after you die. There's no afterlife. And so we're trying to get her to either go to a First Baptist Church in Augusta or go to Freedom Church in Augusta. But she said she would go to New Spring at 4 o'clock on a Saturday. So we took them to New Spring last week. The guy that's the head of the hospitality team there, he's on staff, went to church with Sherry in El Dorado at a place called, I'm not going to say the name of the church, but I'll just tell you this, it's fundamental, independent, King James Version only Bible. You address the church, and his wife is in I don't want to say a mental hospital, but in a facility for counseling in Arizona, because all they taught, and Sherry will tell you this, all they taught was you do this or you're going to hell, do this or you're going to hell. It was all fire and brimstone, just pounded and pounded and pounded. And she said that she was afraid for her life when she went to church there, until one time a speaker came in there that had a guest preacher, and he talked about how God was this loving Abba daddy that wanted you to crawl up in his lap, into his arms, so that he could love you. And she goes, that's the God I want. That's not always about judgment. And in that church, it was always about performance and how well you did and all those kind of things. And I think that's what's kind of happening with the Chosen. I think people are seeing a different kind of Jesus, the kind of Jesus that I've always pictured him to be, this loving. The Bible says there's nothing spectacular to look at him. He's not movie star good looking. He wasn't, like when you talk about Saul, the first king of Israel, what do they say about him in the Bible?
He was tall.
He was head and shoulders above everybody. Anybody ever see Beauty and the Beast?
Yes, yeah.
That's how I picture Gaston. That's how I picture Saul. When I read about Saul, that's how, because he was arrogant. Saul, got to be arrogant, and when you got, Jesus was nothing like that. He was nothing to behold, as the Bible says. There was nothing special about him. So he had to have some demeanor or character or his personality must have been something that was so winsome that people wanted to be around him. And I think that's, as a church, as we strive to be that way, people will just, there's got to be a reason. I mean, Gary and I were talking about a church in Houston that's probably got 20,000. They didn't start with 20,000 people. They probably started with 20 or 30. The conference I'll go to in Dallas at Watermark Church started out with 25 guys. or 25 people, couples, 12, 13 couples got together and they prayed about becoming a church and how they would do that. And today there's like over 7,000 people go there, because the hospitality is unbelievable. The way that the people treat you. Mary was talking about when they were going down to MD Anderson, how this church just took them in and loved them. The first time we went to this conference, we were staying in the Hilton Hotel and had to walk 5 minutes. And as we're coming down past the parking garage their church is in a big business complex area. It's amazing, but people were coming out of the thing, they just started walking up to us and say, hey, guys, where are you going? We're going to the church leadership conference. Oh, come with me. I'll show you where to go. I'll take you right there and get you checked in. And they walked us for like 3 minutes to the place and took us to the check-in counter, and then we got checked in. Is there anything else we can get you before we go do, what we're doing? They were just so friendly and appealing. And so whether it's here in church on Sundays or Wednesday nights or in your own personal life, when you're trying to share with Jesus, be humble. Philippians tells us that Christ had everything, and yet he humbled himself to the cross. And so that's how we have to be in order to, I don't want to say win some to the Lord. I told you I hate that word. Because if you're the guy that gets them to first base, does that mean you lose? No. So, it's good. So, again, if you guys would write down your testimonies and give them to me, what I want to do is get with Janet and then start putting a testimony on our website so that people can see, hey, there's life change going on with Jesus, and so they can actually see stories about people and how what Jesus has done in their life. I think it'd be, if somebody's looking for a church. I don't know, we try to figure it out. I know maybe Les, how did Tessie find our church? Website.
Wrong time, but she was here.
Yeah.
She came through a process of, one look at religions. She bought a Bible, started the book of John. As she was going through it, she decided to start looking into Christian faith, started looking at different denominations, decided that Jesus was baptized. That's the way it ought to be done. So she started looking at Baptist churches, and she came across our website and loved it.
Cool. And then she started bringing her boyfriend.
Yeah.
Angel. So, pretty smart kids. She's an industrial engineering student. He's an aeronautical engineering student. So
Getting some brains in the church.
Yeah. But yeah, so, and they kept coming back because people have engaged them and talked to them, even though like Tessie's probably a little harder to talk to because she's so soft and quiet.
Yeah.
But I think there were some other people that came here that were West Siders this past weekend, and loved the way that you guys greeted them and talked to them, and they felt welcome, and I'm sure they'll be back. Roseanne and Rosalie were members at First Mexican Baptist Church 20 years ago when I was there. I don't know Lucille, the other one that came, but there's 2, 4, 6, we did about probably Templins come back. There'll be about 8 or 9 people from West Side that are looking for a church home. I'm not usually big on just taking fish from one. They're looking for a
that
place.
I spoke to at the back of the
Yeah.
church
Tell
on
them that.
Sunday. And I looked back there and there wasn't anybody greeting them or talking to them. That's strange. Later I thought, they're all down in the basement getting ready to eat. So I went back and talked to him, and he had decided he wanted to change his life. He needed something better in his life. They started their own Bible study at home. They were looking for different churches and had apparently visited several, but he said they just smother us. They just, they were so over-friendly that they felt smothered and pushed, and I thought, you lucked out. But I thought it was kind of interesting. I did ask him, I said, well, why did you choose this church? Is it because of our building? Because I've heard a lot of people say that, oh, you got such a pretty building. They had been here to a marketplace. She says, well, I came to a garage sale several years ago, and I just thought the people were so nice here. And she said, they really are, and I think we'll be back next week. I asked him if they want to come down to the dinner, I'd be glad to sit with them. And he was kind of standoffish, and he wasn't quite ready for that, but I thought, sometimes we do smother people. And in this instance, Yeah. It was a hard thing, but,
Yeah.
it was bad.
But, and that's good because, again, if we go back to last week's lesson about reading the jury, you were able to get a read on that guy pretty quick, and so you weren't overpowering or overbearing. You just kind of met him where he was. And so hopefully they'll be back. And we can learn more about what he means by wanting to change his life.
Yeah.
That's always a good question. What do you mean by that? Why do you want to change your life?
And I think one of the things you have to do as a Christian, and with everybody is, and what we talk about here is, be genuine.
Mm-hmm.
Because people who are looking and are cautious, they'll read you in a heartbeat. So we've got to, we've got to be ourselves and be real, and just everything that this says, if we don't know, say you don't know. Be nice to them, invite them to be yourself, and they'll figure it out.
Yeah, Patty.
Yeah, I was just wondering what your thoughts were on, a lot of these things we've talked about on how to present yourself, how to ask open questions. What do you do when you have someone who is a brick wall and will give you one-word answers, no matter how much you might try?
Again,
how do you get through?
Well, again, it's just, you gotta practice, but using questions that you can answer yes or no.
Mm-hmm.
What did this mean to you?
Mm-hmm.
Yes? What did it mean to you? Then now they can't say yes or no. If you ask them, did you understand that? Yes?
Well, what about the person who won't let you even begin to talk about it at all?
That's right. Be gentle and respectful.
Right.
So you don't know, maybe that's not the day, but it doesn't mean you can't try again later.
Yeah.
So just like with that guy, give him the space, and maybe at least he's heard some things that you said, and the next person he goes to, he might be more open, or that whoever the brick wall is, may be open to the next person. It's like baseball. Nobody, especially in today's baseball contracts, like in Major League Baseball, where you get bonuses for how many hits you get and how many times you go to bat and all that kind of stuff. Nobody wants to be the guy that lays the sacrifice button down because you don't get a stat for it. It doesn't really show up. Doesn't count the hits towards your hits. You get a bonus if you get 200 hits or whatever. So it doesn't count, but that's good team baseball. And so he'll bunt the guy from first to second so the next guy gets up and gets a base hit. Hopefully the guy can score. And so I think it's important, again, that maybe your story didn't resonate with them, but you might know somebody else after having a little bit of a conversation, like, I think I'm going to take so-and-so with me next time. Especially if you know their testimony. This guy's testimony might resonate with this person, or this lady's testimony might resonate with them. And so it's, again, don't think you have to do it all yourself. It's finding the right team and the right group of people that can help get there. So I give you one story that kind of what Joyce was talking about. The idea of that one, the guy that I talked to today about their pastor, their search team trying to be deceptive. That guy's going to leave his church, not just because of the deceptive practices, but when he went to the head of the search team's house, he said, to confront him about this, the guy started cursing him out, using F words and stuff like that.
Oh my God.
And he goes, there's a reason why our church is not being blessed right now, because we've got guys who are not godly leaders. And he said, he told the deacons of that church about what was happening, and he said, well, my kids are moving up here from Texas in the next month, and we're gonna go find a new church with them. Funniest story though is, Jessica asked about the fish symbol, guy had a fish symbol on his car, and this is a true story. One of my churches, this was this guy's brother. A lady cut him off in traffic, and so he started honking the horn at her, pulled up beside her and started shaking her finger at her, yelling at her, and then he drove off. He happened to be a music at a church. Sunday, that lady was walking into church down the center aisle to go find a seat to live, and guess who she saw on the whole stage? Right out the door. So you never know how you're behaving, you're acting, you carry yourself, when somebody's going to see you do something. A waitress accidentally drops a glass of water in your lap. How do you respond? You never know who's going to be seated there that might see you at church someday. So we become winsome and that people are just attracted to us by the way that we live our life. Be blessed in good times and bad times. So, anything else? Anything else? All right. Let's pray. Again, we won't meet next Wednesday. I won't land in Kansas City till about 6 o'clock or so. Don't think I can make it back here by 8 by the time I drive my dad up to the ground. We'll see. And to be thinking in the next few days, give you some ideas, some topics about something that if you want to continue to do this on Wednesday nights, then we can do it. And if you want to, got a topic you want to cover or something you want to discuss, I like books of the Bible and just go verse by verse, chapter by chapter, but I'm weird, so. Acts, the book of Acts. I won't do that one here because I'm started working on a sermon series on Acts.
Oh, okay.
And as
So you're gonna get it anyway.
You're gonna get it anyway, yeah. But it's probably gonna be a like 6 weeks at a time kind of deal. It might take me, the way I'm just looking at it right now, reading, might take us a year and a half to get through it. So I don't want to do 50 weeks straight of the book of Acts. People might get bored. So we'll do like 6 weeks at a time and then do something else and come back and do it a little bit at a time. I tried that one year, I did 24 straight weeks on the book of Luke. And I think people got a little like, oh, we have Luke again. There's something else in the Bible besides Luke. So,
I gotta share this.
okay.
As we were looking for a pastor, one of the candidates had every sermon for the last 2 years online. From January to September, he had gotten 7 chapters into a book of the Bible. 7 chapters in that many months. He was taking his time.
Maybe he just spoke real slow.
We've had some of those too.
Yeah, well, the thing that is, when you kind of do it that way is you can dig into language and stuff like that. And there's places in the Bible where language, the original language, makes everything completely different and some different stuff like that. That's why I said it's best to do it, like in 6-week blocks or something like that. And with the book of Acts, you can do that because there's stuff about just the apostles going out and the church going, and then you've got different batches. Then you got Paul, so it's broken up in some pretty natural things that we can do. So
my thought was there's only so many ways you can serve bacon on eggs.
Yep. But breakfast is still the best meal of the day. You can have it for supper, you can have it for lunch. And if you put bacon on anything,
including ice cream,
they'll eat it. Yeah. Oh, bacon ice cream! They got bacon flavored soda now.
They have Sonic is doing a bacon peanut with peanut butter. That sounds nasty. That sounds nasty. Even peanut butter, even bacon in their peanut butter shake. It's like that's even worse.
I think Betty's did that for a while.
Oh, thanks.
Father, we love you. We thank you for our time together tonight. We pray that you would continue to bless us, watch over us, and keep us. And Lord, I just pray that as we take the things from the last 7 weeks or so, and we begin to practice them, and we're prepared to share the gospel, as Peter says, in season and out, always be ready. Lord, that we might be able to help some people move to a faith-based relationship with your Son, Jesus. Not that we have to win them completely over by ourselves, but as a community of believers, and we come together, and we can share in the process of helping people come to discover Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior, that they would call on his name and be saved. We thank you for everybody that's here tonight. I thank you for their interest, and I pray that you would watch over them and bless them as we continue to be your disciples, one that learn and try to study the things that you taught so that we might be better prepared for the world that we live in today. Help us to be sheepdogs in the future. We pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. I have been telling you guys to pray for your 3. So I've got some cards here. If you want to take 3, just take 3. And you can invite somebody to church with them.
Is there any chance of getting that digitally?
Get it digitally?
Yeah, so they can share it that way.
tell it to never